Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing a deep dive into the world of tokenized real-world assets. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on a company called Archax.
Okay.
They're a company making some very interesting moves in this space.
Yeah, they're the UK's first FCA-regulated digital asset exchange broker and custodian.
Wow.
Pretty big deal.
Yeah, that is a big deal.
Because it means they're operating within a framework that provides some oversight and stability,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, maybe they hear FCA regulated and they're like,
Right.
okay, so what?
Yeah.
But when we're talking about crypto and digital assets,
Yeah.
I mean, it can feel like the Wild West out there sometimes.
Absolutely.
So to have that regulatory stamp of approval, I think it'd be pretty reassuring.
For sure. To
people kind of dipping their toes into these waters for the first time.
Yeah, and that brings us to some news that's been making waves.
Okay.
Archax has just announced a collaboration with Ripple to bring hundreds of millions of dollars worth of tokenized real-world assets onto the XRPL.
The XRPL.
Which is short for the XRP Ledger.
Okay, now, for those of us who maybe aren't fluent in blockchain jargon,
Sure.
what exactly is the XRPL and why is this such a big deal?
Well, it's a decentralized blockchain that's known for its speed, low cost, and it has these built-in features that make it suitable for tokenization.
So essentially, we're talking about like a digital ledger
Yeah.
that's recording the ownership and transfer of these tokenized assets
Exactly.
in a secure and transparent way.
Think of it like a digital vault for your investments.
Okay, interesting.
And this partnership makes even more sense when you consider that Ripple recently acquired Motoko, which is a company that specializes in digital asset custody solutions.
So they're really building out this whole ecosystem.
Yeah, and Archax was already using Motoko's platform.
Okay.
So this collaboration seems like a natural progression.
It's like pieces of a puzzle fitting together.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're not wasting any time putting these pieces into action, because now Archax is providing access to a money market fund.
Yes.
From Abrdn, which is a massive global investment company.
Right.
In tokenized form on the XRPL.
Yeah, and that's significant for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
Firstly, this is the first tokenized money market fund on the XRPL.
Wow.
Which opens up this whole new avenue for traditional finance to interact with blockchain technology.
It's almost like these two worlds are finally starting to speak the same language.
Exactly. And secondly, Ripple's putting their money where their mouth is.
Okay.
They're allocating $5 million to tokens on Abrdn's fund.
Okay.
As part of a broader strategy to support real-world assets on the XRPL.
So they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
Exactly.
But what does all this mean for like the average investor?
Yeah.
Like what's the big deal about having a money market fund on a blockchain?
Well, for starters, it makes these funds more accessible. Traditionally, you would need a certain level of capital and connections to even consider investing in a money market fund. But with tokenization, you can potentially buy into these funds with a much smaller investment.
So it's kind of like leveling a playing field.
Precisely, and it's not just about access.
Okay.
Tokenization also has the potential to streamline the investment process, making it more efficient and transparent.
Okay.
You know, Duncan Moore from Abrdn has pointed out that moving the entire investment and settlement process on-chain eliminates a lot of the traditional paperwork and middlemen.
So it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's more secure.
Potentially, yes.
Wow.
And that's why we're seeing this surge of interest in tokenized money market funds.
Wow.
McKinsey, for example, has reported that these funds already have over $1 billion in assets under management.
That's a pretty impressive figure. But this brings up the question.
Yeah.
Is this just a fad? Or is this the beginning of like a major shift in the way we invest? I mean, some analysts are predicting that the value of tokenized assets could reach $16 trillion by 2030.
Yeah, that's a bold projection.
Yeah.
It highlights the massive potential scale of this market, but it also raises some important questions like, do we have the infrastructure and regulatory frameworks in place to support such explosive growth?
Yeah, it seems like we're in the early innings of a very long game.
For sure.
And Archax isn't just focused on money market funds.
Right.
They've partnered with Assetera, which is one of the first EU-regulated capital markets for tokenized securities, to distribute a range of tokenized real-world assets across the European Union and European Economic Area.
Yeah, this partnership essentially creates a bridge between traditional finance and this emerging digital marketplace,
Okay.
making these assets accessible to a much wider audience.
So it's like opening up this whole new world of investment opportunities.
Exactly.
And it sounds like Archax is just getting started. They've recently added State Street, Fidelity International, and LGIM funds to their tokenized offerings.
Yeah, and these are not small players.
No.
We're talking about some of the biggest names in finance dipping their toes into the tokenized world.
Wow.
It's a clear signal that this trend is gaining traction.
Hold on, we got to unpack this a bit.
Okay.
What does it mean to tokenize funds from companies like State Street and Fidelity?
Well, initially it means providing tokenized access to certain money market funds from these companies.
Okay.
But there's the potential for this to expand to other types of funds in the future.
So this is much bigger than just Archax and Abrdn.
Right.
It's like this domino effect where these major players are potentially setting off this chain reaction across the financial industry.
Exactly. And here's how it works. Archax will issue something called beneficial ownership tokens.
Okay.
Which are basically like digital certificates that prove your ownership of a portion of the underlying fund.
So if I understand this correctly, instead of holding a paper certificate or having my shares held in like a traditional brokerage account,
right,
I'd have these digital tokens that represent my ownership.
Precisely.
Okay.
And these tokens can then be held on various blockchains, including Hedera Hashgraph, XRPL, and Arbitrum.
Okay, now that's a lot of names being thrown around.
Sure.
Can we break down what those are?
Sure. Hedera Hashgraph, for example, uses a different consensus mechanism than traditional blockchains,
Okay.
offering potential advantages in speed and cost.
So they're all different platforms with their own unique characteristics.
Yeah.
But why spread these tokens across different platforms?
It's all about accessibility and interoperability.
Okay.
By making these tokens available on multiple platforms, Archax is essentially making them accessible to a wider range of investors and platforms.
It's like casting a wider net to attract more fish.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
And this brings us back to a crucial question. What does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about tokenized money market funds?
That's a great place to wrap up part 1 of this deep dive.
Okay.
We've laid the groundwork, but now it's time to delve into what all of this could actually mean for your personal finances and investment strategies. So stay tuned.
So we talked about accessibility, efficiency, transparency.
Right.
But there's another potential benefit of tokenized money market funds that's worth exploring.
Okay.
And that's their use as a yield-bearing currency.
A yield-bearing currency.
Yeah.
Okay, break that down for me.
Okay, so imagine earning interest
Okay.
on the money that you use for like your daily expenses.
Okay.
That's the potential promise of tokenized money market funds.
Interesting.
Because these tokens are built on blockchain technology, they can be transferred and settled almost instantly, making them potentially viable for everyday transactions.
So instead of using dollars or euros,
right,
I could use tokens representing my share of a money market fund to buy my morning coffee.
That's the idea.
Wow.
And while we're not quite there yet, several fintech companies are already exploring this concept.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where your money is constantly working for you, even when it's just sitting in your digital wallet.
That's a pretty compelling vision of the future.
Right.
But before we get too carried away, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Risk.
Yes.
Every investment comes with inherent risks.
Of course.
Tokenized assets are no exception.
Absolutely. This is still a relatively new and evolving space.
Yeah.
It's crucial to do your homework, understand the risks involved.
Yep.
Only invest what you can afford to lose.
Right. You know, like your friend
who
jumped headfirst into every hyped-up crypto project without doing any research.
Exactly.
I think we all know somebody like that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the specific risks associated with tokenized real-world assets?
Well, for starters, there's the regulatory landscape. While Archax being FCA-regulated is a positive sign, regulations around tokenized assets are still being developed globally.
Yeah.
This uncertainty could impact how these markets evolve in the long run.
It's like navigating uncharted waters.
Right.
But with a map constantly being redrawn.
Yeah.
So vigilance and awareness are key.
For sure.
But let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
Zoom out to the bigger picture.
Okay.
What do you make of Archax's strategy so far?
Well, they're not just dipping their toes in the water.
Okay.
They're diving headfirst into the world of tokenized real-world assets.
Yeah.
And they're doing it strategically.
Okay.
Their partnerships with companies like Ripple and Assetera show that they're serious about building a robust ecosystem for these assets.
Their move to tokenize those State Street, Fidelity International, and LGIM funds was also a pretty big statement.
Huge.
These are heavy hitters in the traditional finance world.
Absolutely.
And their involvement definitely lends legitimacy to this space.
It signals to the market that tokenized assets are not just a fringe experiment.
Right.
They're a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
As Archax continues to onboard these major players, it's likely to create a ripple effect.
Okay.
Encouraging even more traditional institutions to explore tokenization.
It's like a snowball rolling downhill, gaining momentum as it goes.
Exactly.
But as this snowball gets bigger, can these blockchain platforms handle the increased volume and complexity?
Right.
We're talking about potentially trillions of dollars flowing through these systems.
That's a critical question. Scalability and interoperability are essential for mainstream adoption.
Okay.
The platforms we've discussed, XRPL, Hedera Hashgraph, and Arbitrum, they each have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
The next few years will be a testing ground for these platforms.
Yeah.
And we can expect a lot of innovation as they grapple with the challenges of handling this potential surge in activity.
It's like a race to see which platform will emerge as the dominant player in this new financial landscape. But technology is only part of the equation.
Right.
Are investors, both institutional and individual, ready to embrace this change?
Yeah.
There's still a lot of fear and uncertainty surrounding crypto and blockchain in general.
That's where education and awareness come in. There's a lot of misinformation and hype surrounding tokenized assets.
Right.
Companies like Archax have a responsibility to not only build the technology, but also educate the market about the potential benefits and risks.
It's about building trust and understanding.
Yeah.
And as we've discussed, the potential benefits are significant.
For sure.
Democratized access to investment opportunities, more efficient and transparent transactions, and even the possibility of earning yield on your everyday spending.
It's a compelling vision, but realizing it will require a collective effort from companies, regulators, and investors. We're all navigating this exciting and uncharted territory together.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll look back at this time as the turning point, the dawn of a new era in finance.
Exactly.
For now, it's all about staying informed, asking questions, and approaching this new world with both enthusiasm and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Well said.
And as we wrap up our deep dive into Archax and tokenized real-world assets, one question keeps coming back to me.
Okay.
If these projections about the growth of tokenized assets are even remotely accurate, what will the impact be on traditional financial institutions?
That's a great question to ponder. Will they adapt and thrive in this new environment, or will they be left behind? I guess time will tell.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure.
What's that?
Things are about to get very interesting.
It feels like we're standing on the edge of something really big here. You know,
Yeah.
like the world of finance is changing right in front of us.
Absolutely.
And companies like Archax are leading the charge.
At the forefront.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
A lot of ground, yeah.
You know, from the nuts and bolts of how tokenization works.
Right.
The specific partnerships that Archax is forging. To the bigger picture implications this has for the future of investing.
That's interesting stuff.
And I think we've seen pretty clearly how tokenization can democratize access to opportunities.
Yeah, open it up.
That were previously out of reach for many.
For sure.
But it's not just about access. It's about efficiency,
transparency,
and maybe even creating these brand new forms of value.
Absolutely.
We can't forget about the risks, though.
Of course not.
This is still a relatively new and evolving landscape.
Right.
And just like with any investment, it's crucial to approach it with a balanced perspective.
Definitely do your research.
Yeah, I think informed optimism along with a healthy dose of caution.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty good motto for anybody navigating this space right now.
For sure.
So for those of you listening out there,
yeah,
we're going to leave you with this question. What role do you see tokenized real-world assets playing in your own financial future?
It's a big one.
Is this something you're ready to jump into head first?
Yeah.
Or are you more comfortable just observing from the sidelines for now?
Right.
Either way,
stay
curious, stay informed,
keep learning,
keep asking questions.
For sure.
Because the world of finance is changing really rapidly.
Absolutely.
And the people who embrace that change with an open mind are going to be the ones who benefit the most.
Agreed.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of tokenized real-world assets.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring.